This is actually a pretty cool discussion with my friend Mickey Novak, who is a grip expert, and I was saying to Mickey, just tell me the grip sizes, because I kind of forgot how they're related. So kind of, what is it, 580 or?
The standard grips that you get from the manufacturers are generally either an M58 or an M60. So that is the point in inches. So what you're trying to do is achieve the same diameter, outside diameter, when you finish putting the grip on. So if a shaft is 0.580 on the butt end, you want to match it up with a point or an M58 grip.
Right.
And if it's a 600 shaft or 0.600 inch shaft, then you want the M60.
But if you put a 580 on that shaft, you said it was
600 is going to be 1/64
oversized. That's
Right.
if you don't stretch it.
If you don't stretch it, correct.
And then
if you have some of the graphite shafts in the woods, you may run into some odd sizes: 0.605, 0.610, 0.622, 625. They're not as tightly grouped as your steel shafts, simply because of the variant in the manufacturing process, and then the paint over the top.
Okay, so what about, you were talking about the taper in the grip, and sometimes the lack of it thereof, and sometimes over a little bit too much taper, so in the grip.
Okay, so what you want to realize and what you want to measure is from the butt end down 10 inches, 10 1/4 inches, which is the length of the golf grips, and then you want to measure every inch along the way to make sure that that's a parallel shaft.
Right.
Otherwise, I have a standard operating line that I'll bet anybody with any amount of money that you have at least 5 different size grips
In your bag.
without even looking at it, because your 9-iron, pitching wedge, gap wedge, sand wedge, lob wedge, they all use the same shaft.
Right.
So if they're all different lengths, then you have 5 different
Grip sizes.
grip sizes.
Okay, so we're looking at making we've already built the wood shafts, so we're getting a lot of questions about the iron shafts. So we're thinking about making a shaft system that's for the equal length irons, 5 to P. So if we make that consistent parallel butt section there, can you make the grip consistently even in size all the way down to, say, 8 inches?
Yes.
So would you want to do that?
You have different people have different wants, needs, and desires. My grips that I have designed and manufactured for years have a predetermined amount of taper from top to bottom, instead of a haphazard amount, which is what the Golf Pride Tour Velvet or the Lambkin grips or the Wind grips have. And the reason being is that for years and years, they always wanted a V-shaped grip, because the bottom hand being smaller in their minds allowed for more release.
See, that doesn't really make sense to me that the bottom grip size is small, because I'm looking at my fingers right now, and my index finger is not smaller than my pinky.
The last time I looked, I put both my hands up. I think they were both about the same size.
Yeah.
So why would you want a grip that's shaped this way,
Right.
as opposed to a grip that has less taper? Now, you don't want to have a parallel or a cigar-shaped grip like what you had when you had hickory shafts,
Right.
where it was a parallel all the way down.
Yeah.
But you don't want to have something that's so small on the bottom that you can't hold on to it. You
Yeah.
go back over time and see a lot of guys that lost it at the top.
And you over-rotate at the bottom too.
Sure.
You
Regrip it, and then you regrip it. You let it go, and then you regrip it
Yeah.
back down.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's gone to the depth that you have. I mean, Mickey, you were the first guy on the LPGA Tour to travel around helping those ladies out there.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Well,
It was Woodwoods.
Well, it was Woodwoods, but I mean, you had to get a lot out of that club, right?
Absolutely. So what happens is that you have a measurement system within the world of golf club building, and they measure 2 inches from the top, and that's your measurement. So 0.900 inches is what they consider men's standard. So that being said, there's nobody else taking any measurements at the end of the cap and then anywhere else down the grip. So what I've always done is you have to ask whoever you're working with, touring pros mainly, what grip feels best.
Right.
And then you take your calipers and you go and you measure to find out what it is.
So this reminds me of frequency matching the shafts in the old days. We always wanted to, we didn't have a launch back then, but what we would do is we would take that's interesting because we had frequency matching before we had launch monitors, and you would think it'd be
The opposite.
the opposite of that. You know what I mean? But anyways, so yeah, because the technology is so sophisticated. So we would ask the guy what iron they hit the best, and they'd have to tell us the truth. Otherwise, the thing wouldn't work. Then we would measure the frequency of that shaft, and we try to match them up accordingly.
Yep.
And you could do
Straight line.
because if they wanted it, but because we all know in the shaft fitting business, and Mickey knows this, a lot of guys know this, but you're the shorter the club, the stiffer it's going to be. So you have to kind of have a softer shaft theoretically if you want to match the equal stiffness. A lot of people, Mickey, don't because to me, I always used to use the red classic cord before you came on board, and there was a hardness to it that I liked. And what was that hardness?
It's called the shore hard.
Right.
SHOREHARD. So when you measure, and there's a spring-loaded device that comes up with a number on it, when you press it, a little pin that you press into it. So steel has a 100 rating, which is the highest rating.
Right.
And a marshmallow would probably be 0 because it's just going to go straight in.
Okay.
So somewhere in the middle there, somewhere in that 50 range is about where the Tour Velvet, your most popular grip, is. Now the cord's slightly firmer.
Yeah.
And again, too, that's when they're brand new.
Now,
As the grips age, they get firmer or softer depending on how they're manufactured.
So we know from experience that the tour players, and and the cool thing is guys like you, me, and your son Adam, we're kind of a good test models because we're capable of playing games that tour quality golf. So I always like the harder grip. More heavier grip, not heavier, but harder. The shore hardness of harder, and I believe they call it durometer.
Correct.
So when you make your grips, they have a certain durometer.
Correct. So the raw material that you buy, or as you blend it, you're aiming for a shore hard of, we'll call it 52.
Okay.
So your plus or minus tolerance within the manufacturing of it is going to vary depending on who's making the grips for you. But you certainly have the ability to custom design your own grip if you owned your own factory and you were buying the raw materials and blending them yourself.
So what shore hardness are you at right now?
Our grips are at 50.
So you fit now. In the old days, the touring pros liked harder grips. When Wind Grip came out, because I tried it, I won't try anything, right? Not quite true. And but I tried it and I said, I really like it. It's too soft.
Correct.
And I was surprised that the only way you can get touring pros back in those days to use a softer grip was to buy it, pay them.
Yeah.
And now people have caught on and they kind of like that softer grip. In my hands, those softer grips kind of wiggled.
But again, the harder you swing at it, the more torque is put on it, and you don't want soft grip because then when you make contact, it's going to
wiggle.
rotate. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. So now, Mickey, in your grip, you have a marketing component where you can actually put the logos of your university, or in your case, the picture of your naked wife. I'm just kidding.
Which wife?
He did it actually. So I'm joking, but I'm not joking. And that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was a good one.
Bringing up some things on the past I want to avoid.
We'll leave them alone. Cut. But we tested here. We're going to show people the Body Track logo underneath the grip. And our goal here, people, is we're going to go around the country, and once or twice a year we're going to have a kind of a seminar. And we want people to know that how sophisticated we're thinking. I knew some of the stuff that Mickey was talking about because I followed him as a friend and I listened to him over the years. But I forgot a lot of stuff.
We go back to when there was woodwoods and only steel shafts.
And that was all you could get.
And balata balls.
And you actually practice 2 hours, 3 hours a day putting. Mickey would be on the green at Kendall Lakes just like a hawk trying to look for a mouse to come by and swoop down and get him. And Mickey is the mini putt champion of the universe.
Mini putt. PGA National Open Putting Championship. Don't put me up with any boards and windmills and clowns, okay?
Mickey had this old shitty looking putter. What was it, an HBA?
It was a George Low Wizard 6.
I knew that. I just wanted him to get it out there. And he'd kick your butt. He'd take $10 off every time you just walk by. But he'd be like the guy going on that those little.
You had 10, I took 11.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. He'd give you back 2 so you could buy a soda and come back the next day and take another $11 off him. But, and that was at Kendall Lakes when Gary Baker was there, right?
Absolutely.
And then but in all seriousness, if we can line everything up here, lining up the joints with the shoes being distance gain, creating more ground forces, using the shaft that's going to create more ground forces, and then using a grip that's properly suited to them so that they
Size properly.
and size properly. I think that's a winning combination that you can take back to, and you know how, and you can use your own brand. You can use TaylorMade, you can use Peng, you can use Titus, you can use PXG. Doesn't matter what you use. We're just going to help line up the ducks.
Correct.
You know,
You want to make sure that your shoes fit if you're running a race.
yeah. What's that? Yeah, so we can line up the ducks in the context of being able to put the proper shoe in there, the proper shaft in there, and the proper grip on there to make absolute most ground forces.